Hello and welcome to Spooky News from Spooky Ventures. Today is February 21st, 2025. It might be the middle of winter, but spooky is a lifestyle, not a season, so it's always spooky somewhere, especially around here. Before we get to the actual news, we have a couple of things we need to talk about. First, remember that all things Spooky Ventures, and especially this YouTube channel, are meant to be interactive, so please interact. You can do that by liking and sharing our videos. You can also do that by commenting. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. Now, beyond the YouTube channel, you can support Spooky Ventures by ordering merchandise from our Cafe Press store at cafepress.com/shop/spookyventures. You can also always email us at keepitspooky@spookyventures.com with any thoughts or ideas you might have. And just launched today, you can support and be involved with Spooky Ventures in our production of 5 new silent short horror films via our IndieGoGo. We'll talk about that a little more in the news section. Well, actually, DB will talk about that a little more. Next, if you want more information about any of the things we talk about here, there are a couple of places that you can find it. First, you can stick around after we're done talking. All of the source and more information URLs, including the link for that IndieGoGo, will be included as title cards at the end of the video. You can also find all of those links in the details section of this video on YouTube. With that out of the way, let's turn things over to our remote reporter DB Lovecraft as he gives us a couple of creepy real-life stories along with some music news.
Thanks, Gary. We'll start with a story about a potentially possessed car. Seeming right out of Christine, a smashed car with a damaged battery started playing music. According to witnesses, a country song started coming from the vehicle. As it was being taken into the garage/junkyard. No explanation was found for how the car was playing any music in the condition it was in. From haunted cars, we turn to haunted castles. My partner on Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary lives in an old haunted castle, but most of us are not that fortunate, or is it unfortunate? Well, if it's ever been a life goal for you, and you have the money, you can get your own haunted castle. Ripley Castle is a 700-year-old building in North Yorkshire in the UK. It's on the market with a listing price of £21 million. The castle has a lot of history, including being involved in the gunpowder plot. It also is said to be haunted by a poltergeist. Now that it's on the market, here's your chance. If you have the money waiting to be spent, you can join my pal Scary Gary in having your own haunted castle. Next, we'll cover some music news. John Carpenter is known for directing some amazing horror movies. He's also known for creating some great music, both for his movies and inspired by his movies. Well, he's going to be doing his first musical residency later this year. He's going to be performing 4 nights at the Belasco Theater in downtown LA. The dates are October 24th, 25th, and 31st, and November 1st. Tickets went on sale at the end of January, so I'm not sure if there are still any available. But if there are, you can get them at John Carpenter's website. And with that piece of news, I'll send it back to you, Gary. I understand you have some interesting news to share.
Thanks for those creepy news slabs, DB. I'm going to turn my attention to a lot of collectible news. First, let's look to Super 7. They have some new glow-in-the-dark, or as they call them, monster glow figures from Return of the Living Dead. They feature zombie suicide and zombie trash. They each come with removable intestines. They can be bought individually or as a set. Next, we'll look at Mezco Toys, who have recently revealed a lot of upcoming releases. They did this in an online fair. Let's look at a few of those here. First, there's a Roto plush version of the killer android Megan from the film series of the same name. They didn't release a lot of information about it, other than a picture, but the replicas in that line are typically 18 inches tall, and they have sculpted hands and heads and a plush body covered by a detailed costume. Another upcoming Roto plush was revealed. It's Regan from The Exorcist. Again, we don't know a lot of information beyond what other releases in that line are like and the photo that they released, but we can assume it's going to be like that. They also released information, mainly a picture, of an LDD Presents figure of David from The Lost Boys. The figure shows Kiefer Sutherland's character in his full vampire mode. Another LDD Presents that was revealed is a new Wednesday Addams figure. It's actually the third Wednesday figure they have released in that line. They revealed one more LDD Presents figure in the online fair. That one is Nosferatu. While the new Nosferatu from Robert Eggers has been getting lots of attention, this one appears to be based on the original incarnation of Count Orlok from the golden age of silent cinema. We don't have release dates for any of these items, but it looks like there are a lot of cool things in the pipeline. Now let's talk about Funko. There's a new Funko Pop based on Motel Hell on the way. It's a Farmer Vincent figure, and it will be shipping in March, but you can actually pre-order it now. NECA has some new figures in its Tiny Terrors series on the way. They are variants of their Universal Horror Monsters series. These are the Silver Screen Edition, which means they come in black and white to resemble film gray. The monsters are Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, and the Wolfman. They'll be available individually in stores, but you can also pre-order the full set online now. With that, I'll turn things back over to DB for some movie and home video news.
Leading off the movie news, we'll be talking about a number of trailers that have been released recently. The first of those is for the Stephen King-based movie Monkey. It's making news because apparently the violence in the trailer has gotten it banned on several TV networks. It's in theaters today, but you can't see that trailer on your TV depending on what network you are watching. Next, we turn to the movie Borderline. The synopsis of the film gives off a bit of a Misery vibe as it centers on a pop star who is abducted by her biggest fan. That biggest fan just happens to be a violent sociopath who has escaped from an institution. The trailer has recently been released, but the movie will be showing up on screens on March 14th. Coming to theaters on April 15th, Until Dawn sounds like part Groundhog Day, part video game, and part slasher film, as a group of friends are being stalked and killed over and over, awaking each time to find that it was just a dream, but that they have a limited number of deaths before they will be dead for real. You have to wait for the movie, but you can see the trailer now because it was recently released. Next, let's talk about Final Destination Bloodlines. The latest movie in the Final Destination series, it's set to hit theaters on May 16th, but you can view the trailer today. It sounds like it might be a bit of a twist on the concept of the series while also managing to stay true to it. Before we get to the television news, we'll talk about something Gary mentioned earlier. That's a new IndieGoGo campaign for some short films coming from Spooky Ventures. These were announced recently, and they are going to be the first 5 of a total of 15 that will be released this year. Each one is going to be a short silent movie made as a faux vintage 1920s film. They're all going to be based on short stories that were available for people to read in the 20s. The new IndieGoGo drops today and allows people to support the movies, helping to pay for location fees, props, and more. And you'll be able to get perks, including showing up as an extra, producer credits, and more. You can check it out and get involved now. Now let's look to a couple pieces of television show news. The first item centers around the show Creep Tapes. The first season of that show was the most watched show ever on Shudder, so it should be no surprise that they have renewed it for another season. So if you enjoyed that debut season of the found footage show, you should be in for a treat when season 2 comes around. Fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer got some exciting news recently. That's because Sarah Michelle Gellar recently announced she'll be coming back in the new version of the show that's in development. Talks to reboot Buffy have been going on for several years, but this is the first time we've known that the star of the original series would be on board. Well, that's all I've got for now, Gary, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks for the updates, DB. We'll be turning it back over to you in a moment for a look at our spooky calendar. First, I need to mention a few things, starting with a couple of reminders. First of those reminders, if you want any more information about anything we talk about, you can find that info 2 places. You can stick around until we're done talking and see all the source and more information URLs as title cards at the end. You can also find all that information in the details section of this video listing right here on YouTube. Next up, remember that everything about Spooky Ventures, and especially this YouTube channel, is supposed to be interactive, so please interact. You can do that by liking our videos, sharing our videos, and subscribing to this channel. You can also interact by emailing us at keepitspooky@spookyventures.com. Next, about the calendar. Yes, we have a spooky calendar at Spooky Ventures. Who would have guessed it, right? We list all kinds of dates that will be of interest to fans of all things spooky on that calendar. You can access it by going to the main page at spookyventures.com and scrolling down to find the link. Now we'll turn it back over to DB right now for a rundown of some of the dates on that calendar. DB, what dates do you have for us?
We'll start by looking backwards. Yesterday was the late horror and science fiction author Richard Matheson's birthday. Now today there are two movies opening. One is the Stephen King movie Monkey that I talked about earlier. The other is Invader. I Heart Willie, which is one of the public domain Steamboat Willie movies, opens on Wednesday the 26th. Two movies, Blood and Breakfast and The Slasher Nurse, both open next Friday the 28th. March 3rd is Arthur Macon's birthday, and the next day, March 4th, we'll see the next episode of Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary released on this YouTube channel. Those are the only dates for the next week and a half on our calendar, Gary, so I'll send it back to you.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Spooky News from Spooky Ventures. We'll be back next month for another episode. In the meantime, remember, spooky is a lifestyle, not a season, so always keep it spooky. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.